Way up high in the Indian Himalayas, there's this little frozen lake. Now, for most of the year, it looks like any other alpine lake. But when the summer sun comes and the ice melts, it reveals something absolutely chilling. Hundreds and hundreds of human skeletons. So today, we're diving into the mystery of Roopkund, or as it's much better known, Skeleton Lake.
You gotta wonder, right? How did all these people end up here, in this one tiny, remote spot? For decades, that one question has been at the heart of one of archaeology's most haunting puzzles. And let me tell you, the answer we have now is so much weirder and more complex than anyone could have possibly imagined.
Okay, to really get a handle on this story, you first have to picture where we are. We are talking about an altitude of over 5,000 meters. That's almost 16,500 feet up. Yeah, this is not a place you just stumble into on an afternoon hike. It is a brutal, unforgiving environment way above the tree line where the air is thin and just surviving is a challenge. All right, so let's jump right in. We'll start at the very beginning with the discovery that put this crazy place on the map for the rest of the world.
So picture this. It's 1942. World War II is raging, and a forest ranger trekking through the area stumbles across this unbelievable scene. And the sheer scale of it is just mind-blowing. We are not talking about a handful of bodies here. We're talking about the skeletal remains of somewhere between 300 and 800 people, all scattered in and around this tiny little lake.
So, as you can probably guess, the theories started flying almost immediately. Could it be a secret Japanese invasion force lost during the war? Maybe. What about a famous general's army that got lost in a blizzard back in 1841? Some even thought it had to be a fast-moving epidemic or even a mass ritual suicide. But here's the thing. All of these early ideas, they all shared one single crucial assumption, that whatever happened here, it was one big catastrophic event. And for a long time, one theory really did rise above all the others. It was a powerful idea, and it seemed to have everything going for it. Scientific evidence, even local folklore. Okay, so the first real scientific breakthrough came from looking at the bones themselves. When scientists finally got a chance to study them, they started noticing this really specific, really weird pattern of injury. Many of the skulls and shoulder bones had these short, deep cracks, unhealed fractures that pointed to a very sudden, very violent end. And this is where the real forensic detective work kicks in, because the bones tell a story. First, the fractures are all on the tops of the skulls and the shoulders. That means whatever hit them, it came from directly above. Second, the wounds are from something round, not a sword or a spear. And maybe the most chilling part, no defensive wounds on the arms or hands. It means this happened so fast, people didn't even have time to react, to even put their hands up to protect their heads. So what in the world could cause injuries like that? The evidence all pointed to one terrifying, almost unbelievable conclusion. These people were caught out in the open during a freak, an absolutely brutal hailstorm. I'm talking hailstones the size of cricket balls. Basically rocks falling from the sky with enough force to kill. And here's what's so cool. This wild scientific theory actually lined up perfectly with local legends. There's this local folk song that tells the story of the goddess Nanda Devi and how she got angry with a group of pilgrims and struck them down with, get this, iron balls thrown from the sky. I mean, how perfect is that? For decades, this combo of science and folklore, it was the story. Case closed, right? Well, not so fast. Because then modern science showed up. A huge, groundbreaking genetic study back in 2019 took everything, and I mean everything, we thought we knew about Roopkund and just blew it all apart. You see, this new study started by asking a really simple but revolutionary question. It challenged that one core assumption everyone had been making for decades, the idea that this was a single event. What if they didn't all die at the same time? And boom, this is the first absolute bombshell from the DNA analysis. The DNA showed that these skeletons didn't come from just one group of people. Nope, they came from 3 totally distinct populations. Okay, so you had one group with South Asian ancestry. That makes total sense given the location. But then there was another big group that was genetically from the Eastern Mediterranean. We're talking people with ancestry from places like Greece or Crete. And just to make it even crazier, a third group was Southeast Asian ancestry. But wait, it gets even wilder, because this next part is the finding that just completely rewrote history.
When they did radiocarbon dating, they found out these groups didn't just come from different places. They died at completely different times. The South Asian group, they died way back around 800 CE. But the people from the Mediterranean and Southeast Asia, they died around 1800 CE. That's a full 1,000-year gap, a millennium. So Skeleton Lake wasn't the site of one tragedy. It was the site of at least two completely separate events. So you see, this huge discovery didn't really solve the mystery at all. It just shattered the old one and created a bunch of new ones that are even stranger. So let's dig into what this all means. All right. The next clue came from a really cool technique called isotopic analysis. Basically, your bones keep a chemical record of what you ate throughout your life. The South Asian group, the ones who died around 800 CE, had a diet full of things like millet, exactly what you'd expect for people living in that region. But the Mediterranean group, their diet was heavy in wheat and barley, a classic Mediterranean diet. This proves they weren't people who had lived in India for a long time. No, they were travelers, newcomers to the area. So let's try to put this all together. Who were these different groups of people? Okay, Group A, the South Asians from around 800 CE. The best guess is that they were probably local pilgrims. There's a famous pilgrimage route nearby, the Nanda Devi Raj Jat. That part of the story actually holds up. But Group B, the people from the 1800s with Greek or Cretan DNA, their presence there is a complete and utter mystery. And to top it off, they apparently died alongside a single individual with Southeast Asian ancestry, which just adds another layer of what to the whole thing. And this, right here, is the absolute heart of the new mystery. There are zero historical records, no colonial British reports, no travelers' diaries, absolutely nothing that mentions a group of people from the Mediterranean trekking through this insanely remote part of the Himalayas in the 19th century. It's like they're ghosts who only left their DNA behind. So, as you can tell, the story of Roopkund is far from over. It's still unfolding. And that brings us right up to today, where the big question now is, how do we protect this incredibly fragile, one-of-a-kind site? You know, for years, the lake's fame has actually been its own worst enemy. Unregulated tourism meant people were just walking all over the site. And even worse, some visitors were actually taking bones home as souvenirs, which is not only ghoulish, but it destroys priceless scientific context forever. Thankfully, the authorities have finally stepped in. The courts in India have banned camping in the immediate area to try and preserve what's left. So what started as a seemingly simple mystery, a single deadly hailstorm, has morphed into this incredibly complex, 1,000-year-long story about global migration, strange journeys, and multiple tragedies in a high-altitude death trap. It just makes you wonder, right? What other connections existed across the ancient world that we've completely lost to history? And maybe the biggest question of all, as climate change continues to melt the ice up there, is what other secrets, what other skeletons, what other stories is Skeleton Lake still waiting to reveal?